Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So, I have lighting now. I figured it out. I put a tripod with the light on my desk. It is a redneck setup. But my reaction videos, it's been too dark in here. So, yeah, I had to do something. Anyways, today we are reacting to three creepy true jogging horror stories by Mr. Nightmare. I'm still kinda sick, so I still kinda sound like shit. Um, anyways, let's go ahead and get into it.
I wouldn't call myself a very active person, but I do enjoy working out and running every now and then, to stay in somewhat good shape. My friend Jay and I usually work out and run together, as Jay is always in shape and kind of trains me, if you will. Jay and I would often run late at night in my neighborhood since most of it is well lit, and I live in a decent area. However, we stopped running in my neighborhood 2 months ago after this happened. The way my neighborhood is laid out is that there's a main road that connects to separate roads branching off, but ultimately they all connect back to the main road, which leads
Right.
to a dirt path extending into local farms and larger properties. This is important to understand the situation Jay and I were in. One night, we decided to run from my house onto a path that goes through the woods to one of the roads that branches off from the main road in my neighborhood. We plan to use that road to reconnect to the main road, then continue running to the dirt path before heading back to my house using the main road. I know it sounds confusing, but we took this unusual route to maximize the miles we could run, as our usual path, just running on the main road and back, was getting too easy for us. The run started as usual, with Jay and me running from my house to the path, talking about high school drama as we ran. However, we soon began to hear footsteps behind us. At first, we didn't think much of it since the path we were running on was frequently used, and we often saw other runners or people using it to cross from one area to another in the neighborhood. But as we continued, the footsteps
So I'm gonna give y'all a tip real quick. Um, this is my tip. Always, always carry. Um, no matter if you're going to the grocery store real quick, um, getting gas, or if you're like me, just going fishing. Um, always carry. You have no idea when you'll need it.
remained behind us, mirroring our speed.
Especially on trails and woods and stuff. I'm currently in Florida, so we have gators and stuff. And when I'm fishing, I always got my thing. Also because gators. If a gator comes up on you, then you know what I'm saying. You might have to. um, yeah, even on trails and shit, there's some weird people. Also, if you live in a decently sized city like I do, some people live on trails and shit. And the people that live on trails, homeless people that are cracked out and shit, they're typically kind of wild creatures.
When we picked up the pace and ran quickly, the footsteps followed suit. When we slowed down to a jog or walk for a moment, so did they. At this point,
Hmm.
Jay and I were obviously a bit nervous and freaked out, but we were almost to the well-lit road. When we finally exited the path onto the road, we looked back and saw no one behind us. We both exchanged the same what the f*** look and decided it was probably just another runner trying to keep their distance from us. We continued onto the side road that led to the main road of my neighborhood and followed the main road all the way to where it turned into the dirt path.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we were both still feeling good and decided to push on, running further down the dirt path. However, unlike the main road, this path had no streetlights and was lined with trees, creating an ominous atmosphere at night. Jay and I ran about a mile down this road before deciding to turn back. As we turned, I caught a glimpse of a dark figure quickly darting into the trees on the left side of the road. This immediately reminded me of the footsteps from earlier, and I began to feel noticeably uneasy. I
Yeah, another smart idea is you can actually so this is my holster. For handguns, you can actually get holsters that will fit a flashlight in it. So one of the most popular flashlights for handguns are the stream lights. I have a Glock 43X clone. So this is like a Streamlight TLR 7 sub flashlight, but you can get holsters. That when you holster your weapon, the flashlight, you can keep your flashlight on your weapon. That would be perfect for evenings. I don't have a flashlight for mine because I'm not really out in evenings. But if you're the type of person that does this kind of thing, um, that would be perfect. Because if you are getting followed by something, you can draw and turn on the flashlight and figure out what the hell is stalking you. Or I actually have a really powerful flashlight on my keychain. I forget the brand, but it is quite bright. I didn't mean to blind you. I'm sorry. Um, I forget the brand name, but it is ROVYVON. You can't see it, but it looks like this. Fits on your keychain. It's like 6,000 lumens. It is insane. I use it constantly. It's like 40 bucks. But get one of those on your keychain and flash that bitch. You will light up the woods. Because you don't really want to draw your weapon until you're being threatened. Um, if I'm in the woods, though, I'll draw. I really don't care because you're in the woods. You're not really in public. Um, but if you're not sure, strong ass flashlight. But yeah, that's that's weird.
Told Jay that I had seen a figure jump into the trees along the path that we needed to take back.
Hell no.
He dismissed it, saying I was just being paranoid and seeing things because of how far we'd run. I almost believed him and started doubting
Oh, hell no. Another tip, don't get a friend like that. Oh, dude, you're just seeing things 'cause we ran 2 miles. No, you better leave that fucking friend.
myself, so we began making our way back to my house. We ran past the spot where I had seen the figure with no issues, but just as we were about to reach the main road again, we heard rustling about 20 feet behind us in the trees. We turned around and saw a figure standing in the middle of the dirt road. The figure was facing away from us and was dressed in a black hoodie, along with very ripped and dirty khaki pants and black shoes. At this moment, I was more scared than I had ever been in my life. It felt like my heart was going to fly out of my chest. It was beating that hard. Jay looked at me, then back at the figure, and said, "What the hell are you doing?" But stopped mid-sentence when we both heard the person start laughing.
Nope, nope, nope. So that's when you grab your heat and you're prepared to draw that bitch. Yeah, hell no. He started laughing.
It was an awful, cackling, cringe-inducing laugh.
Hell no.
Then, as we stood frozen, the person turned to look at us, still laughing, before suddenly stopping. Now, he just stared at us with a glare that still haunts me to this day. His wide eyes and pale face burned into my memory. Jay and I exchanged one last look before running faster than we had ever run in our lives, sprinting the entire 2 miles back to my house. As we ran, we heard that terrible laugh again behind us, which only made us run faster. When we finally got back to my house, I threw up, then rushed inside through the back door, locking every entrance and shutting my garage doors. We sat there panting, still processing what had just happened, and swore never to run in my neighborhood at night again. If you're a night runner, always stay in well-lit areas and bring a friend, just to be safe.
Bring a gun. Bring a gun. Always bring a gun. As they say, I would rather have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have one.
As a high school junior, I ran cross country and track, and I loved running alone. I wasn't the fastest on my team, but I had endurance and could lose myself in the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground. A woman in a quiet rural neighborhood near a forest preserve had hired me to run her hyperactive puppy, Izzy. She'd pay me $10 per run. It seemed like an easy gig. Izzy needed the exercise, and I got a little extra money while training. The area had scattered houses, abandoned farms, a cemetery, and the remnants of a disbanded cult commune. My parents
I was about to say $10 really ain't much, but I think he's a high schooler at the time, right? That's not.
had always warned me about running alone in secluded areas, but I figured I was fast enough to outrun anything dangerous. That changed one evening. It was just before dusk when I took Izzy out for a longer run. The setting sun cast a deep orange glow over the treetops, but shadows stretched across the road, making everything feel darker than it should have been. The only sounds were my breathing, Izzy's panting, and the rhythmic thud of my running shoes against the pavement. Occasionally, a bird would flutter in the trees or a distant dog would bark, but otherwise it was eerily quiet. The farther I ran, the quieter it got, as if the world was slowly emptying itself of sound. About 2 miles in, we reached a stretch of road flanked by thick forest on both sides. That's when Izzy suddenly stopped. Her ears perked, and she stared into the woods, completely still. A low whimper escaped her throat. I followed
Mm-mm.
her gaze. At first, I saw nothing but the dense trees.
You better turn the hell around. Nope. Mm-mm. I'm turning around. Nope.
Branches swaying slightly in the breeze. But then, between two trunks, a man's face peeked out from behind a tree. He was short, maybe in his 30s, wearing a hat pulled low over his face, a thick jacket despite the mild weather, and gloves. His eyes were locked on me, unblinking. His stillness unnerved me, but I told myself he was probably just a hiker or a hunter. Still, something about the way he stood, like
So for all of you that may be um underage, can't carry a firearm, what I would recommend to you is one of these. Um the purpose of these, they're utility knives, right? That's what they are. 99 shit, 100% of the time I use this is for opening Amazon packages, and it's a utility knife. However, since you're underage and can't have a weapon, um, this can protect you right here. This knife specifically, this here is a Kershaw that I bought off of Amazon for like 17 bucks. Kershaw is a great budget brand, and yeah. So if you can't carry a gun, you can carry one of these, and trust me, they still hurt.
half hidden, watching silently. It sent a chill down my spine.
It's better than not having shit.
His presence felt off, like he wasn't just some guy passing through, but something wrong, something that shouldn't have been there at all. I gave him a polite nod, trying to appear unfazed, and I started to jog
Just obviously don't take it to school or anything.
again. My heart was beating a little faster now, and not from the run. A few steps later, Izzy stopped again, her body rigid, tail between her legs. My stomach dropped as I turned back. The man had moved closer. He wasn't behind the tree anymore. He was standing right at the tree line, just feet from the road, still staring. His head was tilted slightly now, as if studying me. A sickening realization crept in. He wanted me to know he had moved. He wanted me to notice. I felt something cold slip down my spine. My body was instinctively preparing to run, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe he was just some weirdo trying to mess with me. Maybe if I ignored him, he'd get bored. I kept running, trying to stay composed, glancing over my shoulder every few steps. At first, I thought he was gone. The woods looked empty again.
Why didn't you turn around?
But then, just as I turned forward, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. I turned back, and he was sprinting toward me. He had a butcher
Oh,
cleaver.
hell
A
no.
choked scream got caught in my throat as pure, unfiltered terror exploded through my body. I didn't think, I just ran. Adrenaline shot through me like electricity.
I didn't think. I drew my gun and... Yep. Chase after me with a knife.
And I pushed myself harder than I ever had in a race. My breath came in ragged gasps, Izzy struggling to keep up, her leash jerking in my grip as we tore down the road. I had never known fear like this before.
I'm guessing the dog is like a rat dog. Because if a dog can't keep up with you, that is either a really tiny dog or a really old dog.
A kind of fear that exists deep in the bones. A kind that tells you you're gonna die if you slow
Well, he said that the dog is hyperactive, so it's probably just a rat dog.
down. I glanced back only once.
Which rat dogs are fucking useless.
He was still chasing me. His face was twisted
Get
in
a
pure
cat.
rage, his mouth slightly open as if growling. The gleam of the blade catching the last rays of sunlight. He wasn't just running. He was running erratically, his arms flailing in unnatural motions, his legs moving almost too fast, like something that wasn't used to running at all. That's when
That's one thing people need to learn is you'll see these pranksters on YouTube chasing people with fake knives and shit. You do that to me, you're getting shot. There's a lot of people out here these days. Um, you're gonna get killed. Because that's fucking stupid. Most of those pranks are fake as shit, obviously. But I don't want those pranks giving other people the idea to do that and their ass gets shot. Even if this person's chasing you with a cleaver to be funny, his ass is about to be laid out on the pavement. Like, for real. Shit is not smart. Um, so that's one thing. People need to learn in 2025 to not do that shit. Like the guys that were dressing as clowns in like 2016, 2017. Don't do that. You're gonna get killed.
I realized he wasn't breathing. I could hear my own frantic
That's a
gasps. I could hear Izzy
dumbass idea.
panting. I could even hear the distant rustling of the trees, but not him. His footsteps thundered behind me, his pace matching mine, but there was no sound of breath, just that awful silence beneath the pounding of his boots. I reached a neighborhood and sprinted between the houses, zigzagging through yards hoping to lose him. My vision was blurring, my legs were screaming, but I couldn't stop.
Oh man. Yeah. Y'all ever been so exhausted that your vision blurs? That I think that means you're getting close to passing out. That it is not fun. It is not fun.
I darted behind a shed with Izzy. Finally, when I was sure we had put enough distance between us, I pressed myself against the rough wooden wall, gripping my knees, gasping for breath.
When I get really exhausted and I'm like getting close to passing out, my ears ring real loud. So that's another thing that I get.
Silence. I swallowed hard, my heartbeat still hammering in my ears. Slowly, I turned my head. At the top of the hill, he stood, watching. The cleaver dangled from his hand, his chest rising and falling as if he had just stopped running too, but he wasn't chasing anymore. He was just standing there, staring. We locked eyes.
Hell no.
His face had no emotion now, no rage, just that blank, unsettling gaze, as if he had simply lost interest. A minute passed, then another. A car's headlights appeared in the distance, beams cutting through the dark, and just like that, he turned and walked back into the woods. No hesitation, no hurry, just gone. I didn't move for a long time.
You called the cops, right?
When I finally did, I took the longest route back to the woman's house, sneaking through the yard so I wouldn't be visible on the main road. My hand shook as I took my payment, acting like nothing had happened. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell my parents. I knew if I did, they would never let me run alone again. I don't know who he was. I don't know if he was part of the old cults, a drifter, or something.
Dude, you gotta tell somebody. Somebody can get killed.
else entirely. But I do know one thing. I never ran in that direction again.
Not smart.
This is a story spanning nearly 7 years, so I will try to be as straightforward and to the point as possible.
Spanning 7 years?
I live in a suburban neighborhood surrounded by rural countryside. There's nothing but open fields and winding country roads around it.
Love
It's
it.
practically impossible to get anywhere without a car. It is a very beautiful place, but very secluded. As a result, I often feel confined here, which has only gotten worse during quarantine. The first time I remember seeing something suspicious was when I was 9 years old. My little brother and I, who was 7 at the time, were taking our dogs down towards the front of our street, near the main road.
A good thing if you live in a rural area. Um, a firearm that I would recommend is a AR-15 with some kind of magnification optic, at least like 1 times to 3 times at minimum. If you live somewhere like this, like all this land, um, you want a decent optic and you want a flashlight that has a lot of distance. I forget what they call that. Um, I forget the term, but you want a good flashlight for that, and you want an AR because it's a rifle, and in a big open area like that, you're gonna want a rifle.
We were casually talking and not paying much attention to what we were doing. Suddenly, we heard somebody call to us, "Hey, come here." A big, white SUV was parked at the start of our street,
Hell
and the
no.
man was sticking his hand out the window, motioning for us to come over. I remember distinctly that it was a tall white guy with curly blonde hair. My little brother started to walk his way, but I stopped him. I'm a very paranoid person, and I'd heard all the horror stories about kids being lured into vans, never to be seen again. I led us off in the other direction, back to our house, while also keeping an eye on the guy in the car. When he saw that we were leaving, he turned his car around and drove off. Upon arriving home, I told my mom about it, but
Good.
she dismissed it, saying he was probably just going to ask us for directions or something like that.
Get the fuck out of here.
It scared me a little at the time, but I didn't think much of it until now.
Tell your dad. I bet he'll react differently.
A year later, during Halloween of 2014, another incident happened. A black sedan was apparently following trick-or-treaters down the street. When a parent approached it, it tried to run them over before driving away and out of sight. To make matters worse, the license plates appeared to have been taken off. I didn't see any of this
hell
myself, but some of the adults in the neighborhood had made a big stink about it, and I was given yet another "don't talk to strangers" lecture. People were especially sensitive about this kind of thing at the time, since the murder of Hannah Graham had recently taken place in my area. Fast forward another 4 years to summer break in 2018. Some neighbors
Hannah Graham? Hold on. Oh, damn. 18-year-old British-born American student. University of Virginia? Damn. That's fucked.
of ours were out of town on vacation, and they asked me if I could pet sit for them while they were away. I had to go by 3 times a day to let their dog out, once in the morning around 8 a.m., once in the afternoon after lunch, and once in the evening at 9. Their house sits to the right of our neighborhood, off the main road. To get there from my house, I can go to the end of my street and take a right, or I can cut through the woods and into their backyard. Going through the woods is faster, but the brush is very dense and the trees are close together, so I usually would just go along the street. One night, wrapped up in a session of COD with my friends, I forgot to let the dog out. When I remembered, it was past 10, and I rushed over, worried that he might pee on the floor inside. It was pitch black out, and I couldn't see anything but the beam of my flashlight and the glowing stars in the sky. Luckily, the dog had been able to hold it, so I let him out as usual. After he went, I brought him back in and was prepared to leave again, when I looked out the window and saw a black sedan parked next to the driveway. This made me uncomfortable since I was pretty sure it wasn't there when I first showed up at the house. There were no other houses nearby, and I knew for a fact that the owners weren't coming back for another few days. After debating what I should do for a few minutes, I finally decided to go back and cut through the woods. I did so and got back without issue. To play it safe, I cut through the woods for the rest of my time pet sitting, but I never saw the black car again. Now, these occurrences alone would not be enough to merit a story, but it's what happened recently that really terrifies me and makes me question whether these events might actually be connected. I run for the track team at my school, and since quarantine had prevented us from having practice, I go running every day on the roads around my house. My street isn't very long, so I often run off the main road and other connecting ones. For the first
Right.
few months, everything was going fine. I would jog around for an hour, taking in the scenery and exploring the various different country lanes. But about a month ago, I was running back home on the main road when I noticed that a car seemed to be following me. I always run on the left side of the road going towards traffic. This is so that if a car comes up behind me on a blind curve or in an area with low visibility, it won't hit me from behind where I can't see. The car, coincidentally a large white SUV, was on the other side of the road, going about the same speed I was jogging. This was especially odd because there aren't many cars on that road, and you can go much faster than on a busy one. Unsure of its intentions, I turned down a small side street with a
Oh.
cul-de-sac at the end. It didn't follow, so I ran down to the circle and went back home. However, the next day, it followed me again. This time, I saw it sitting at the start of a driveway, and it pulled out after me once I passed it. Like the day before, it followed me for about a mile before I turned down the same street, where it promptly drove off. This continued. Every day for a 10-day period, it followed me. At first, I thought that it might be going somewhere on a schedule that just happened to coincide with my runs. To test this theory, I decided to run an hour later than I usually did. The first day I tried this, it wasn't there. The next day, though, I was disturbed to see that it was once again following right behind me. This definitely unnerved me, but I was hesitant to tell my parents because I was worried they'd forbid me from running. Furthermore, it hadn't attempted to do anything yet, so I decided I could put up with it as long as I was careful and watched it closely. On the 11th day of being followed, I turned down the side street to see a black sedan sitting at the end. At first, I thought nothing of it. There were a few houses on the street, and it likely belonged to somebody who lived there. But
Mm-hmm.
as I began to get closer, I noticed something odd. Underneath the car, barely visible, was the silhouette of a person. They barely fit and were huddled on the far side to avoid being seen. I immediately got chills and ran off in the
What?
other direction, looking over my shoulder to make sure they stayed put. To make matters worse, I saw that white SUV, which usually drove away, was sitting at the top of the street, penning me in. I was feeling panicky now, and decided that I preferred the evil I knew to the one that I didn't, so I picked up the pace and tried to sprint by the SUV. When I was within a few feet of it, a man jumped out and ran after me.
Oh,
I
hell
easily
no.
outpaced him, and thank God that my months of training had paid off. When it became clear he couldn't catch me, he yelled at me to come back and said he just wanted to talk. I responded with 2 fingers, if you catch my drift, and I sprinted the remaining mile back to my house. I finally broke down and told my mom, who got me on the phone with the police. Sadly though, since I didn't get a license plate, there wasn't much they could do. They promised that they would look into it, but as far as I can tell, nothing has been done. These experiences have haunted me for the past couple of weeks, and with
I hate police departments like that. Well, we don't have a license plate, so we can't do anything. Really, bitch? You can't look out for a suspicious white SUV that just sits in the fucking road? Really?
all my spare time, I've had a lot of time to contemplate the situation. After connecting the dots, it's clear to me that these men have been trying for multiple years to kidnap a child from our street. There are quite a lot of children in my neighborhood, which explains why they frequent it so often.
You need to tell your daddy. And when you see those cars again, tell daddy. have Daddy go outside with that motherfucking AR-15 and get rid of a couple problems.
It worries me that somebody less cautious than myself might find themselves in a similar situation and fall prey to these predators. I
That's
still have
crazy.
nightmares about the man who chased me down the street. He was very tall with blonde curls, the same man who tried to abduct me when I was 9 years old.
Weird shit. Really weird shit. Yeah, fuck all of that. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'll see y'all in the next one. Y'all be good. Stay safe. I'm out.